Have you ever wondered if protests actually work? You know what they do, but not in the way a lot of people think. A lot of studies have actually shown that protests are effective in achieving whatever the goal that the protesters are after, but not really because of the slogans or because of the signs or demonstrations or anything. It's actually because a protest causes the individuals who are participating in that event to actually get involved. It excites them. This is something that is just an amazing parallel for how our faith is. Something we talked about a couple weeks ago was this little mention of something that comes out of James, where we see James saying that our faith without works is dead. You see, we can't just have a faith where we sit here and passively say it, or we wear nice little shirts or something where it's just kind of a part of our week and then we say, hey, we're good enough, we're good little Christians. Our faith has to be something that actually causes us to think different, to see the world different, to act different, to treat other people different, because that's exactly what Christ did. You see, he didn't just come and throw a couple nice little phrases out there. He came to actually be different. What I want you guys to do is take a look at a couple of passages out of James. And I think what you're going to see in here is this reinforcing of the idea that we can't just be people who passively sit on the sidelines and say pretty things. We can't be people who just hear nice stuff when we show up and we do some kind of Bible study or sermon or church service or whatever. We have to be doers. We have to be people who actively demonstrate and act on our faith. Now, action and activity is the exciting part. That's the part we all like, right? It's the part where we love to sit here and, throw some kind of shirt on with a logo and get out there, do some volunteer work, do some service work, roll up our sleeves. This is the thing that gets us excited. But there is something to just stopping for 1 second and meditating. I know that sounds weird. We think of meditating and we think of yoga or some sort of Far East religion, but it's something that's actually scriptural. And you'll read in a second where you end up seeing meditation pop up in Psalms. But I think what you're going to find is that meditation is basically just saying, just pause for a second and take stock of what's going on. Be reflective. What you end up seeing in Psalm 77 is this translation of an individual who's going through grief, and they start in this period and this attitude of grieving over the situation they find themselves in, but then they meditate. And then they find themselves in an area where they're pondering. What is God doing? What is his purpose in all of this? They've kind of moved past the initial emotional shock, and now they're at a part where they're actually trying to kind of decompose. What's happening? Where is God in all this? And at the end, because they've stopped and they've meditated on what's going on, ultimately they end up being able to see God's glory in their situation. This is something that so many of us need in our own lives, right? I mean, we need to be able to stop sometimes and just breathe for a second. That can be so hard to do. And when I was a youth minister, this was actually something where we would try to do an exercise with the teenagers and just tell them to stop and sit in silence for just a second. It was hard to do because I like to run my mouth, but we'd have them sit in silence. And it was so hard for them to do it. And you could really get this feeling for the fact that they don't get an opportunity to do that, and I think we don't either. And so what I'm going to actually ask you guys to do is going to be a little bit weird, but I want you guys to just stop, and whoever is facilitating the conversation for 30 seconds, just stop and meditate on your week. Just sit here and think about what's going on in the world, what's going on in your life, what's impacting you. And then I want you to read a couple of these scriptures that we have for you and just talk for a second about maybe what you feel like you see and you feel when you have a chance to just stop and reflect on what God is doing in your life. So we're trying to talk about action. We're trying to talk about getting involved, right? So why are we getting into this thing about being quiet and pausing and having meditation? Well, it's because of this. When we stop and we think about what God truly wants in our lives and how God is truly moving, we can cut through the crap of a lot of the other stuff that's going on in our life, right? Something that we would see the Pharisees do time and time again to Christ is they would get so caught up in what they thought they should be doing, and that you get caught up in the bad things things they thought they saw the disciples or Jesus doing. And so they would sit here and they would ironically quote things that maybe weren't terribly wrong. They would sit here and say, well, this is what the law of Moses says or the Levitical law says. But Jesus every single time would look at him and say, guys, you got this all wrong. I demand mercy and not sacrifice. I don't want your religion. I don't want your slogans. I don't want your empty themes that you think are religious. I want you to actually stop and just kind of observe and keep your eyes open for where God is opening up opportunities for you to be able to love other people, for you to be able to care for other people. Scripturally, there's this concept where people talk about that there's two tables. There's this theological table of us serving and loving God and a second table of us serving other people. And this is what Jesus was saying the Pharisees were missing out on. They were missing out on what it truly means to follow the law of the Lord. It wasn't about the rules. It was about love. It was about compassion. It was about mercy and not sacrifice. In our own lives, we so often end up relegating our faith to an area where it's nothing more than a sacrifice. It's something we do because we almost feel like if we go and we do our sacrifice of our weekly amount of time that we spend on a Sunday or a Wednesday or whatever day it is, and we sit here and we pray a little bit, maybe we throw a couple coins in the offering plate or online portal or whatever you have, then we're being good little Christians. And when we do that, it makes our faith completely worthless. What we should be trying to do is to be trying to see where God is opening doors, where He is putting us in the lives of other people, and where He's putting us in this messed up world to be able to be that light, to be that voice of love and compassion where it's missing in every other place. And if what we boil our faith and our religion down to is something that just turns into a bludgeon where we either, beat other people and say, well, this is what the Lord, wants the world or the country or whatever to do, or if we just act mundane about it and say, yeah, our religion is something we kind of put over there and our faith is something we put over there, it doesn't really impact our day-to-day lives, then our faith is dead. It is completely impotent at that point in time. And so that's really what I would urge for all Christians to be able to do, is to not let your faith just be a sidecar on your life, for it to be something that you're able to use in order to cause you to act different than what the rest of the world would expect, to show that love and compassion where everybody else just isn't willing to show it. Be different. And the way we're going to be different is by trying to get all the distractions that are in life out of the way, pausing, spending time in prayer and Bible study and in meditation, trying to see where God is speaking to us and where He may be leading us so that He can use us for something that may be more glorious than what we can ever achieve, no matter what kind of effort we put into it. That's what I have for you this week. Thank you so much for joining me. And until we can meet again, God bless.